Everyone. NVAK Collective is taking the traditional music label and turning it upside down. The socially driven label cultivates female and non-binary talent from traditionally overlooked regions like the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Africa. And joining us now is Alex Salibian, COO and co-founder of NVAK Collective, and Tamar Kaprelian, CEO and co-founder as well. Thank you both for joining us. Alex, I want to go ahead and start with you. So how is your collective differentiating itself from other more traditional music labels?
Yeah, so thank you for having us. It really starts with where we're looking for talent. That's how this all began. We set out to create safe spaces for musicians that did not have an opportunity to tell their stories. And we believe that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity isn't. So from there, when we started doing that work and realizing that there's this whole pool of talent in places in the world that nobody else is looking, we had an opportunity because we're young, we're flexible, we're relatively free in that region that we could remake the record label as a whole. So Tamar and I set out to look at every single aspect of the record label and the artist development system and rethink it. So we decided to offer essential benefits to our artists like healthcare and financial management. We focused on holistic A&R and artist development, and we created a whole new deal system for them, something that we thought would be best for the artist, for the record label, and for all the collaborators involved. And we coined it the simple agreement for artist and label. And it's a new and innovative way of looking that we hope that other record labels will adopt.
That is incredible. Tamar, Alex touched on this, the simple agreement for artist and label. Why do you think it has gone this far in the music industry and hasn't been a standard to include something like this for artists?
That's a great question. I think partially just because the system is the system, and the system's been around. The traditional label has been around, major label has been around for so long. And, when you have such a massive entity, it becomes really hard, that being nimble, being flexible, it becomes harder to change the conglomerate.
Yeah. And Alex, over the past few months, I think we've seen, especially when it comes to streaming platforms, these different companies getting really competitive and trying to show that they're putting the artist first and maybe show that the industry does need to change. How important do you think it is right now for not only streamers, but these labels to put the artist first? And do you think it gives you a competitive advantage?
Yeah, definitely. So the interesting thing that's happened in the recording industry is the artist has not been set as the customer of the record label. And that's one of the fundamental things we changed here, because the artist ultimately is everything. Without them, there is no music industry. So we set out to just start with a very basic business model that sets the artist as our customer. And Tamar and I are both creatives. She's an artist, I'm a record producer. We've spent so much time dealing with various artists, and we know what they need. We know what's missing. So if you think of it from a simple business model perspective, we know our customer very well. We understand what they need in order to feel healthy, to feel safe, to feel motivated, inspired, creative. And ultimately, they know their customer best too, and their customer is the public. So we can't pretend that we know the public better than the artist. That's not our job. But by empowering them, understanding them, developing them, educating, mentoring, we are super confident that we will have a competitive edge because we will create better art. And that will translate and tell new stories, because we're dealing with artists from regions that people haven't heard these stories yet. And that's super exciting to me and really inspiring.
Absolutely. And Tamar, knowing that you're an artist, I think a lot of the time people see that there are major pop stars who are female, and they don't realize a lot of the barriers in place for women and people who are non-binary when it comes to this industry. So how is your collective leveling the playing field and allowing for people who might have dropped out of the music industry without what you're providing?
That's yeah. Our company, in terms of the people in it, we are mostly led by women. And we are, we we're trying from every aspect of the work that we're doing, whether it be the nonprofit work or the on the label side, we're trying to focus on those that traditionally have gotten left behind, and by putting their narratives and their stories first, and like approaching topics such as mental health, you know, essentially saying, you know, we've seen this problem, we've seen it be a systematic problem in this industry, and we're putting our money where our mouth is, and elevating voices in every single aspect that we can, whether it's giving women education, giving women the tools to be able to write and produce their own music, because I think that ultimately is a huge problem in the industry, is that women don't end up getting to positions of power because they don't have the tools necessarily to be able to create and finish their art, start to finish themselves. So ultimately they have to rely on other creatives in the industry to be able to make those things happen for them. So we're trying to remove those barriers to entry, in addition to obviously employing women, a lot of women and non-binary people within our company, and giving access for people to move up. So those are just a handful of things that we're trying to do to make the industry a little more equitable.
And hopefully NVAK is leading this charge and changing the industry. Thank you both so much for joining us. That's Alex Salibian and also Tamar Kaprelian, co-founders of NVAK Collective.